Welcome back to the Bill and Doug Show. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. We're doing our playoff brackets as we do every Tuesday. Eventually, we will make this a playoff show, even more specifically when the brackets are coming out from the actual committee on Tuesday nights. For now, it's a good way to get everybody in the mood to do this. Can Notre Dame still make the playoff? That's going to be part of our conversation because, as people may or may not know, I picked Notre Dame to win the national championship, and they are currently 0-2. I also picked Cade Klubnik to win the Heisman, and his team is currently 1-2, and I am terrible at my job.
Do you think from now on you should put those predictions out into the world just so you can put the hex on those people and then immediately reset your picks so that you're not actually tied to those predictions?
Yeah. So that definitely is the bit that I should go for, is that I'm just trying. It's not what I actually think with my brain. It's just me hexing people because this is not going well. Now, the thing, I actually still think Notre Dame's good. Do you think Notre Dame's good? Or do you think Notre Dame is like, oh God, no, like I don't completely get why they're 0-2 right now?
I still think they're pretty good. Yeah. I saw, I think it was Kirk Herbstreit said, like, I'm actually quite impressed with Notre Dame. I don't think you can go like quite that far when they're 0-2, but yeah, they're still very talented. And actually, like, some of the stuff with CJ Carr and the offense is kind of interesting. It's just that their defense is like way out of whack, and they lost 2 games, one of which they probably needed to win.
Yeah. I do think so. So the Pete Sampson, who does the podcast with Matt Fortuna about Notre Dame on The Independent and also covers Notre Dame for The Athletic, I was reading some of the stuff that he was writing off Notre Dame's loss to Texas A&M, where they just could not stop anybody. And the one thing that seems to be true, and I talked about this a little bit on the other show, is that the Chris Ash hire defensively is already looking very questionable, and that feels real. And I think they have talent on defense, but they're not matching the scheme to the talent. They're not matching the coverage to the pass rush. And there are just some basic disconnects that are happening there. But you can also understand, and it turns out they played 2 bangers. They played 2 teams that might make the playoff in their first 2 weeks. And this is what you get. This is one of those things, again, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. How excited were we to watch Notre Dame against Miami and Notre Dame against Texas A&M in the first 3 weeks? Awesome, right?
Really fired up, yeah.
Death knell. Like, what are you doing? How is that your first 2 games? It's difficult in this sport, Bill, because when teams give us what we want, they also might be sabotaging themselves. And if Notre Dame just was going to play Texas A&M in week 8 and they had played whatever, random team X, Boston College, in week 3, they had a bye in between, instead of Texas A&M, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So it's like we come on here and we rip Indiana and Penn State for scheduling 3 patsies in the non-conference, but you know who's undefeated right now? Penn State and Indiana.
Right. It would have even been better, I think, if Notre Dame, like, say they still wanted to play Miami and A&M in September, get a little feel-good game in between, right? to maybe figure some stuff out. It's like, because even like, it's nice, I guess, to have the week off in between, but I think you'd probably rather play somebody and build some momentum and build some confidence. And Notre Dame wasn't able to do that. And then it got back out on the field, and yeah, it was a great game. It was highly entertaining. It's the reason why we want to see teams like that play each other. But I think the unfortunate circumstance of Notre Dame's schedule this year with the way it stacks up is now you have to ask this question, are they done? And it's September 16th.
Now, the other problem with Notre Dame is they lost the feel-good game last year. They lost to Northern Illinois. It's like, hey, what should you do in between Miami and Texas A&M? It's like, I don't know, schedule a MAC team. And it's like, no, don't schedule a MAC team. Not if you're Notre Dame. Notre Dame's whole thing is that they have the big win and then they lose the feel-good game. They lost to Marshall a couple years ago. So maybe there's no answer. I do think they're good. I know that there's currently a debate happening with some of the AP pollsters who are still ranking 0-2 Notre Dame right now, and some people are outraged by that. I had a very specific way of voting back in the day. I actually don't exactly know what I would do with an 0-2 Notre Dame on an AP ballot this week. I think maybe I would have them out, because part of my rationale would be, well, if Notre Dame, they're 0-2, they haven't won. If they went 0-12, but they're 12 losses, this is how I kind of game it out sometimes in my debate about how you vote. If, like, okay, well, do wins matter or not? Well, no, like if you played great opposition and you played well and that should matter. I always think, well, if you were 0-12 and your 12 losses were to the top 12 teams in the country, would you have that 0-12 team ranked 13th? And if your answer is no, of course I wouldn't rank an 0-12 team 13th. Then I kind of think you shouldn't rank an 0-2 team. And when they become 1-2 or 2-2 or 4-2 or 6-2, they'll be back up. That's fine, because you're letting the results do the talking. Would you rank an 0-12 team with losses to the top 12 teams in the country 13th in your poll, Bill?
I don't think I would. No, I think you'd have to win a game to get on my AP ballot. Yeah,
because
I've been thinking about right. I've been thinking about it too, and I don't think I would have ranked them. I suppose I see why you would, but I don't think it's right to put a team that doesn't have any wins yet in there after we've played 3 weeks of games. I was wondering, I was just looking up as you were talking, like, when's the last time a team was winless this far into the season and still ranked? And Ralph Russo, who's now at The Athletic, actually had it in his news story about the poll when it came out earlier this week. And his lead is Notre Dame became the first team in 37 years to start a season 0-2 and remain ranked. And then I scrolled down to see, like, oh, who was that and when was it? It was Michigan in 1988, which is also the year I was born. So now I feel old. Because I was like, 37 seems like a long time ago. And it's like, well, that happened 3 months before I was born.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Yeah. Congratulations on being we show you're 36.
Almost 37. Right, almost 37. Yeah. That Michigan team started the year number 9. Lost by 2 points to number 13 Notre Dame, and then lost by 1 point at home to number 1 Miami, and stayed ranked. And then they didn't lose again the rest of the year and finished number 4.
So the real answer to all of this, as we continue to have the low-hanging fruit discussion about outrageous AP voting, is if you have a rationale and a consistent standard for voting, I don't care whether you have Notre Dame ranked right now or not. As long as you have a reason for it, and a reason that you will then apply equally to every team in the country, and that you will then continue to evolve with the results over the course of the season. Because I think you could make a rational argument for ranking 0-2 Notre Dame, and I think you could make a rational argument for not ranking them. Just have a good argument. Mm-hmm. And I don't think an argument is you're 0-2, you can't be ranked. I don't think that's a good enough argument. But I also don't think they lost to 2 great teams. If they played 2 lousy teams, they'd be 2-0. I also don't think that's a good enough argument. You need to go a step beyond that. And then also, by the way, this is the other problem with AP poll stuff, is groupthink is the biggest problem in the poll. But what we do is yell at anybody who's not part of the groupthink.
Yeah. Well, yes, but I think if you're outside of the groupthink, which I know you often found yourself outside of, but as you said, can like back up your stance, then I think it's fine. Like that's the only thing you can do. Is when you like go outside of the group thing, you're like, this makes no sense. There's absolutely no way you can defend it. And then maybe you choose not to defend it. Right. It's like, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't be part of this process. But no, I think so. It's 2 losses, 1 on the road, both to ranked teams by a combined 4 points. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there has been, I certainly found it on Twitter, and I was double checking that this person existed, but Terry McCauley, who's used to be one of the TV guys, who's a former official who does stuff. I don't know if he does it anymore, but he has a Twitter account. And I was like, is this the real guy? Is this a real guy? I definitely saw it on his account, but I've seen other people talk about it. There was an absolutely egregious holding call on the 4th down game-winning touchdown pass by Texas A&M, where the Texas A&M center got beat, or there was a defensive tackle who came through the line and the center tackled him. Yep. And then you could even see, I know Terry McCauley was doing it. I think I saw other people doing it. You could go to the all 22 or whatever it is, and this official who should have been looking at it was looking at the right tackle. And this official who should have been looking at it was looking off to his left. And I think they've diagnosed that there isn't an official who saw it and decided, no, that's not a penalty. It's that nobody was looking at it, and that somebody made a mistake in that process of somebody's got to have eyes on that. And the reason I'm asking about it, Landis, is do you think if we get down to a nitty-gritty playoff discussion at the end of the year, would it be reasonable to bring up in that room when you're discussing Notre Dame? And it's probably going to have to be 10-2 Notre Dame that runs the table, because 9-3 Notre Dame with the schedule they have left, and we'll talk about it, probably is just out. But could you look at that and say, well, Those were two tough games. They were both very close, and they got boned by the refs. And that, like, it's egregious. And I know that we can't live that way all the time, but does this rise to the level of the exception to the rule? Let a missed call factor into your thinking?
I don't know that you can do that because you just said it. That just opens a can of worms that I'm not sure the playoff committee wants to open. Could you apply it secretly and not say it? Perhaps. But I don't think you want to publicly come out and use that rationale, because then you'll just have everybody going back through every single game and documenting every questionable call and saying, what about this? What about this? What about this? And then that's a whole other problem that I'm not sure the committee wants to deal with.
So this is spectacular for the people who miss the idea of college football teams having their seasons ruined in September, that legitimately Notre Dame's season might be ruined because their schedule might not be enough to get them in at 10-2. Here's who they have left. This week it's home against Purdue, then it's at Arkansas, home Boise State, home NC State, home USC, off week at Boston College, home Navy, at Pitt, home Syracuse, at Stanford. And if we go through that more specifically, Arkansas hung right with Ole Miss this past week, although Ole Miss was playing as backup quarterback, but lost by a touchdown. Boise State's already lost to South Florida. Boston College lost to Stanford this week. Pitt lost to West Virginia. And like, it's just hard to find the win that would impress anybody. It might come down to USC in the middle of the season. Like, USC has Illinois and Michigan in the two games before Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame has to be rooting pretty hard for USC to get to 5-0, 6-0, to get their 3-0 right now. They have Michigan State at Illinois, home Michigan before they play Notre Dame. 6-0 USC would be the best opponent that Notre Dame has left, and they have to be rooting for the Trojans.
Yeah, NC State's unbeaten, but I don't know that says much. They played East Carolina close, played Virginia close, played Wake Forest close. They just happened to win all three of those games.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be holding my breath hoping that NC State suddenly becomes a quality win for Notre Dame. The other thing that's problematic for Notre Dame too is one, it's just light on sort of like impact opponents. But then there's nothing after Halloween. There's not an opportunity for here comes Notre Dame's late season surge. Can you believe that win they got around Thanksgiving on their way into the playoff? It's like, nope. There's going to be a whole lot of November to the end of the season is BC, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, Stanford. Like there's no juice there on the back end of that schedule.
So they play 5 ACC games a year. We are excited that they're playing all 3 Northern ACC teams. It's not going to help them. Right. I mean, unless BC, Pitt, or Syracuse does something that doesn't look like they're prepared to do right now, and somebody's going to be on pace for a 10-win season, but there's not a Clemson in there. There's not a Georgia Tech in there. They already played Miami. There's not a Florida State in there. Like, this is the thing. They're playing the wrong ACC teams. So
yeah. They might get perhaps a ranked win against Navy. Like if Navy like sneaks into like number 24 or something like that over the course of the season.
Do you have Notre Dame in your playoff bracket right now?
I do not. No,
I don't either. Obviously, the context matters. Do we agree? Like, is 9-3 Notre Dame definitely?
They have no shot. Yeah.
Right. So they've got to run the table, which actually could happen. I think they are good enough to do that. They have to figure out the defensive stuff. CJ Carr's played well, as you said. Running game is great. They got back to Jeremiah Love against Texas A&M. So they could do it. And then the question is, would that be enough? And then it depends who they're being compared to. I don't think it's over, but if they're being compared, if there's a 9 and if they're kind of like the last 10-2 team getting compared to some 9-3s, then they have a chance. If they are going head to head with other 10-2 teams, it is very likely that the 10-2 team they'd be going up against would have a better win than they're going to have the opportunity to have, unless USC makes the Big Ten championship game and all of a sudden they have a win over USC, and at the end of the year USC is number 7 and their only losses to Notre Dame. So that's I don't think they're dead, but they need help.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be really tough at 10-2 to be put in over any 9-3 SEC team. Because it's not going to help them because you're just going to get compared. They lost to A&M, right? It's not that they lost that game; they lost to an SEC team.
At home.
Yeah, so that's tough. Could they potentially get in over a 9-3 Big Ten team? Yeah, but I don't know that it would happen against 9-3 SEC.
Yeah. So you know what you could do if you're a little bit of a sad Notre Dame fan right now, Landis?
Little retail therapy.
You could do this if you're an excited Ohio State fan. You could do it if you're fired up for Illinois, Indiana. Huge Big Ten showdown on Saturday, because there are so many options with Roback, man. They got all kinds of good looking attire. If you go to roback.com, they have all these different like collections for different college teams. I'm looking at the Notre Dame stuff right now. I know you might be upset about like Chris Ash's defense right now, but how sad can you be with like a nice looking shamrock with the Notre Dame logo on a quarter zip? Yeah. Wouldn't that cheer you up, Landis?
I think it would have to cheer you up just a little bit. Yeah.
And I like they have a bunch of Ohio State stuff. They have these cool quarter zips with the helmet stripe on it. We've heard a lot from Ohio State fans over the years about how excited, like, people care about the stripe on the Ohio State sleeve. Isn't that a thing, right? You can get it right across like a nice quarter zip on your chest, right?
Yeah, people are obsessed is probably the right word with the jersey sleeves. Yeah.
So like if you have a team that you like, go to roback.com. The Bill and Doug Show is brought to you by Roback. So it's like all these with these collections, right? It's like the fall collections, because it's that time of year. So you got to refresh the activewear, baby. So you can get hoodies, you can get polos, quarter zips, fleeces, but this is really like turning to quarter zip and hoodie kind of weather. And again, like the game day collections, it's just like they're kind of subtle, but still classy. So there's a lot of good stuff to look at, and we'll get you a little discount. Okay. If you go there, try BAD20, BAD20, to get 20% off your first order at Roback. Again, that's code BAD20 to get 20% off your first order at roback.com. That's RHOBACK.com. You want to do some picks now? Playoff bracket? Ready for the playoff bracket?
Yeah.
What's your playoff bracket? Why don't you reveal yours first, and then we'll see how smart you seem.
Okay. Number one, I still have Ohio State. I will say I considered putting Miami there, but I did not. I have Miami 2. Georgia 3, which is a big difference for me. Oregon at 4. So those are my top 4. Ohio State, Miami, Georgia, Oregon. 5, I have Penn State. 6, I still have Texas. We can talk about that if you'd like. 7, I have Florida State. 8, I have Utah. 9, I have Texas A&M. 10, Oklahoma. 11, Illinois. And 12, Tulane, which is a new G5 team.
It is a new G5 for you. So that's 3 new teams in for you this week. 4 new teams, actually. You have Georgia in. You had them out last week. Texas A&M in. Illinois in for the first time, and switching from South Florida to Tulane. Let's run through mine because we wound up being pretty similar because we're kind of headed toward each other now. My latest playoff bracket, Ohio State 1, we're the same there. Miami 2, I've now moved up Miami, we're the same there. Texas 3, and we can talk about who we think is going to win the SEC. Oregon 4. So we agree on 1, 2, and 4. Penn State 5, also the same as you. Georgia 6. So we basically just have Georgia and Texas flip-flopped at 3 and 6. Utah 7. Texas A&M 8. Illinois, I've been on Illinois from the start. I have them at 9. Georgia Tech 10. I was on Georgia Tech at the beginning of the year, off briefly, got back on last week. I'm staying on. And then Missouri 11. South Florida 12. So just because South Florida lost to Miami, I'm not bailing on South Florida. My 2 new teams this week are Texas A&M and Missouri. Landis, I just honestly, not even to make fun of the SEC, I don't know what to think of the SEC.
No, neither do I. Because I think so. I have Georgia, Texas A&M, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. But I think you could have LSU in. You could have Auburn in, probably. If you're just trying to like project, if you think, okay, the SEC is going to get 3 or 4 teams, I think there's like a pool of 7 or 8 that you could reasonably try to project. because it's just like I thought there'd be clarity coming out of this weekend.
Yeah.
there really isn't. There's some interesting games, like Oklahoma plays Auburn this week, so we'll continue to get clarity there. It's just much easier to define, I think, the playoff pool for the Big Ten right now than it is the SEC.
So I almost put Tennessee in off a loss because Tennessee should have beaten Georgia. Tennessee should have put Georgia away. Gunnar Stockton had to make a great fourth down throw for their tying touchdown. They still had to make the 2-point conversion to tie it. And then Tennessee missed a very makeable field goal in the last play of regulation that would have won the game for Tennessee. So like right now, FanDuel odds and odds anywhere, Georgia's number one. Georgia's the favorite to win the SEC. Like I think they should have lost. So credit to them for winning, but also Tennessee let them off the hook a bunch of times. Then there's no such thing as field goal defense. Tennessee had the kicker made the same kick in overtime that he missed, right? So, and I thought Georgia's defense did not look like the Georgia defense that we are accustomed to seeing. And then offensively, I don't know if this is the arrival of Gunnar Stockton and he's here and he's their guy and he's off to the races and he's a Heisman favorite, or if he made a good throw when they needed it. And that's what this is about. I'm not fully invested in Georgia. You have Georgia now as your SEC champ. Are you fully invested in Georgia?
No, not really. I just I have to have an SEC champ, and I don't really know who to pick. I don't know who to pick at the moment. So like I probably agree with you that Tennessee should have beat Georgia, but Georgia won. So like I'm going to change that spot a lot, I think, as we go through this exercise, and I think that's okay. Like it's a little volatile, I understand that, but I think that's okay as these leagues start to take shape. But no, like I still think Texas can win the SEC, right? Like I have Texas like still in the SEC championship as my sixth team, because maybe the thing in the SEC that I feel best about is Texas's defense. Does that make sense? So, like they're still figuring a lot out on offense, and Arch Manning's got to get right. But I didn't think Quinn Ewers played great for much of last season, and Texas still got to the SEC championship game. So, I still think there's very much a pathway there for the Longhorns to get to Atlanta. I'm not totally out on Alabama being in that mix. LSU, like I said, Auburn, Oklahoma, like they're all kind of there. But every week we do this, we'll have to decide who we think the SEC champion will be. So this week for me, it's Georgia. Tune in next week to see who I think it might be.
Odds to win the SEC: Georgia plus 290, Texas plus 300, so basically tied. Alabama 550, LSU 550. Then a jump to Texas A&M at plus 1,200, Oklahoma plus 1,300, Ole Miss plus 2,000, so that's 20-1. Auburn also 20-1, Tennessee 30-1, Missouri 30-1. And I think any of those could happen. And again, I just think we have to be careful and we have to call out the national conversation. I don't want to start the conversation here and say everybody in the SEC sucks, because that would be just as biased and unfair. But I also think we have to be on alert for this lack of a great team being some kind of signal of SEC superiority, when I think you would look at Ohio State and Oregon, and they clearly would be the best teams in the SEC right now. And I think you could argue Penn State, because Penn State hasn't played anybody. They've had some slow moments, but also their defense, I think, has been really good across the board. So like we just, right? I'm not saying that I think the conversation has been a lack of dominant team in the SEC is good, but I'm on alert for it.
I'm on alert for it too, because we're not. I don't think we're far from. And I wasn't trying to go down that road but even I said like, well, there's like 7 or 8 teams you could consider to put in for the 4 playoff spots you think the SEC might have. Well, the answer is not to put all of them in. So I absolutely can see us having that conversation, especially if a lot of these games between the top of the SEC, like we just saw with Georgia, Tennessee, end up being really close, right? So I'm already envisioning whatever Auburn, Oklahoma this week. It's a field goal game, and everyone thinks both teams are awesome. So, and like maybe they will be. I'm not saying that would be definitively false, but those conversations happen an awful lot in the SEC, and they don't really tend to happen anywhere else. So, I'm ready for it. I don't think we're quite there yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, it's not definitively false that they're both good. We cannot take it as definitively true, which is what we are on alert for. Does it feel like very likely the Big 12 is won and that like to try to have a discussion about a second big, or will Utah, Texas Tech tell us a lot?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I see that's a game where I could see like if that's close, people coming away feeling really good about both those teams. If you look,
Okay.
it's always hard to predict, right? Like what exactly the committee might take into consideration other than wins and losses, but like some of the underlying numbers favor both those teams. Like right now, like net success rate, Texas Tech and Utah are both very good, and they could come out of that game and sit like in the same shape, but one of them has to take a loss. So I could see them both being in there. I've had Iowa State in. I've moved them out for now. I don't know. I guess right now that there's like a path to two Big 12 teams unless it's Texas Tech and Utah. I know like in September it's probably too much of an absolute to speak in, but I don't think the rest of the league is like really blowing anybody away right now.
Which makes this huge game on Saturday, like defining in a lot of ways. Texas Tech at Utah, big noon will be there, noon Eastern, 10 a.m. local start. So I will stop short of calling that a playoff play-in game, but it is part of the September referendums. And Illinois, Indiana this weekend, I don't know if we have to stop short of calling it a playoff eliminator game. And listen, if Illinois loses to Indiana and runs the table, including a win over Ohio State, they're going to make the playoff, right? So we don't want to go too far with it. But Utah, Texas Tech, and this is just one of those reminding people who think college football begins and ends with Alabama, Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State. These are two gigantic games this weekend. Actually, there's three involving playoff contenders: Utah, Texas Tech, Illinois, Indiana, and Nebraska, Michigan. And yes, Nebraska has the loss to Oklahoma, but if Michigan goes and wins at Nebraska and it feels like they're like have released Bryce Underwood a little bit, we'll get into these much more on the Friday pick show, Landis. Big games.
Yeah, this is a heck of a stretch coming up. I mean, especially for Illinois. I mean, look at actually for both of them. So Indiana's got Illinois, Iowa, Oregon in its next three. And Illinois in its next three has Indiana, a currently ranked USC team, and then it plays Purdue, but then Ohio State's on the other side of that. So it does feel like an eliminator of sorts. I think maybe looking at the schedules that probably Indiana needs it more because Indiana also has to play Oregon and Penn State, and Illinois plays Ohio State, but doesn't have to play Oregon or Penn State or Michigan and already has a win against an ACC team. So they could maybe rebound from a loss a little easier, or at least have more opportunities to rebound from a loss than I think Indiana would.
Okay. So like a lot to be worked out. I feel fairly strongly Indiana's favored in that game, and Indiana has looked very good. Illinois not looking good for a half against Duke, but then finding a way to kind of hang in and then pulling away at the end. Illinois needs a great game from its offensive line, but like I feel good about having Illinois in my playoff bracket right now. You added Illinois this week. Did you think about adding Indiana instead? Or when you put Illinois in your bracket, did you do so reluctantly at all?
No, it was one of those two. It was like, okay, Notre Dame's out. Notre Dame's out. I'm only going to have one Big 12 team. I'm going to put a fourth Big 10 team in. It's one of those two. And I haven't 100% decided what my pick is yet for that game, but like at the moment I'm leaning Illinois. So I put Illinois in my bracket.
Okay. Nebraska not in your head quite as much for that spot?
Little bit. No, a little bit. I'm excited to see them play Michigan. And get a better feel for that. But no, they're kind of lingering for sure.
Yeah. Now it's time to find some stuff out. It's time to find some stuff out, and we're going to do that this weekend. So we'll see you back on the Friday's pick show, where we'll break down and make picks for all those games. Again, I was horrible last week, so I gotta get my head screwed on straight. But for now, we'll do this every Tuesday. Our latest playoff bracket, where our head is about this wonderful sport that we enjoy covering so much. Thanks to you guys for being on the ride with us. Thanks to Roback, man, for jumping on board. We're excited to have him, right, Landis?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we will see you guys soon here on the channel. We got some Matt Patricia videos coming, Brian Hartline videos coming, and a gigantic show for our premium Substack subscribers about Ohio State roster building. That will drop on Wednesday afternoon. If you're listening on this pod, if you are watching on YouTube and you are not part of our Substack experience, this might be a good week to try it for free over at Bill and Doug Substack, Google machine. Go find it.
Bill
We'll
and
put
Doug
it in the show notes
OSU.
too.
Bill and Doug OSU.substack.com.
Google machine. And so it would be a good time because we're really going to dive in on modern day roster building in a way that I think will be interesting. Ohio State's the team we're doing it with, but I think Landis, it applies. What we're going to talk about applies to everybody these days. Yes.
Yeah. The increasingly changing college football landscape, how to navigate it and build a championship roster. Yeah.
And like not how to navigate it from lawsuits. Yeah. Like how to navigate it as a fan to try to figure out what to think of what your team is trying to do. Because we don't, we want you to hold your team that you love to account. We don't want you to drive yourself crazy as a dedicated, educated, loyal fan when you're maybe thinking about things the way they used to be instead of the way they are right now. That's what we'll tell you about the Wednesday show. For now, thanks to you guys for being here. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was the Bill and Doug Show.